Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, I'm pretty sure, November 19th meeting of the Elementary School Building Committee for the Elmwood School project. I will quickly run through our agenda and then we will get started. Tonight, after our public comment period, we have some invoices to approve and some minutes to approve. We then have a review and approval of proposals for code review. We're going to discuss some of the major schedule items that are coming up and get a quick update on the road improvement process from both permitting and any abutter issues that we have. And then an update on the plumbing drawings revisions and the pre-qualification process. So hopefully this feels a little bit like a light agenda, which I probably shouldn't say out loud, thus jinxing it. But we will hopefully get through quite efficiently. Opening up, we have an opportunity for public comment. It does not look like we have anyone here looking to provide public comment. So if anyone does join, we will entertain the opportunity to open it up again. But we can move right along to invoice packages. Tonight, we have 4 invoices in the invoice package. A invoice for Vertex OPM 11631 in the amount of $35,753.33. We have an invoice for Perkins Eastman, number 009542100011 in the amount of $320,000. And then we have 2 invoices for Local IQ, 006564038. Actually, they're both numbered that.
They were both. It's the same invoice. It was the stormwater advertising, and
Okay.
I think it was both of the 2 planning board advertisings.
Okay, so the 2 planning board advertisements. So it's broken out here on the invoice package as separate because it's 2 different advertising pieces, but it is one invoice. And those 2 different advertising pieces are 145.14 and 71.34 respectively. Our total invoice package tonight is $355,969.81. Are there any questions or comments on the invoice package? Okay, hearing none, I would seek a motion to improve the invoice package.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jagroot, and we are, this meeting is being conducted remotely tonight, so we will roll call vote. We'll start with Bill.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Kyla?
Yes.
Jagroot?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so the invoices are approved unanimously 5-0. And I will get those signed and over to Mrs. Rothermick tonight. Next, we have minutes from our last meeting, which was the October 29th meeting. Were there any questions or comments on those meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, I would seek a motion to approve the minutes of October 29th, 2024.
Everybody's waiting for Mike. So yeah.
You've kind of carved out a role for yourself.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jagroot. Roll call vote. We'll start with Bill.
I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. So in anticipation of this, I will just FYI, I will vote. I wasn't there, but I did watch the meeting, so I will be able. Well, I'll just vote yes now. Mike.
Yes, sir.
Kyla.
Yes.
Jagroot.
Yes.
Okay, and so it is that one passes 4-0 to 1 abstention.
Yep.
Next up on the agenda is review and approval of code review proposals. Chris Everly, are you taking this one?
I'll take this one. I'm not going to strain all your eyes by throwing a leveling sheet up on the screen if you'd like to zoom in and see the details of that. It was included in your meeting packet as part of the process in the town of Hopkinton the building department and the fire department use a third party at their option to review the drawings, review the fire alarm and fire protection submittals, and to assist them in field inspections and rough and final inspections. They have a stable of 4 separate firms that they recommend to folks filing for a building permit, the town of Hopkinton. And so we took that list and developed an RFP, which we sent to all 4 firms. The 4 firms, Code Red Consultants, Firepoint Consultants, Jigsaw Life Safety, and JS Consulting Engineers, all received the RFP and responded. And we took the scope of work, made sure that they were roughly comparable. The only real variance was in discussion with Perkins Eastman. We thought it would be, and the building department, we thought it would be advantageous to sign them up early. That's why we're signing them up now as opposed to when we apply for the building permit. Yeah. That way they could issue written direction on code issues that are the designer is trying to sort out. And that helps to solve those issues before they go out in a public bid package. So by moving forward in this way, it lets us bring them in early, begin doing work. When we looked at the proposals, Firepoint Consultants was the overwhelming low bid. They came in at about $6,800 compared to the other firms, which were all more than double that. They do have a $500 per additional inspection charge, and they do have a $75 an hour charge for the consulting. But even with those charges, they were still significantly lower than all the other firms. So with that said, our recommendation would be that the town of Hopkinton select Firepoint Consulting to be the third-party reviewer for the project. And we'll continue to work with Perkins to see if there's a way to write this into the GC scope of work. The way that it would essentially work that we're envisioning is that we'd write in the cost for additional inspections required by the third party as part of the permit fees that are required to be paid by the contractor. And that would allow us to bring the consultant on now. I think they have a deposit they require up front. And then they would continue working under the direction of Hopkinton Fire Department and the building department until they can move, or until the project is completed.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, so Chris, what is the exact language you need for the motion?
I would say motion to motion to approve Firepoint Consulting as the third-party permit consultant for the building department and fire department and Hopkinton Fire Department.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion?
Yes, sir. So moved.
Okay. We have a motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mike, second by Bill. Roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mike? Yes, sir.
Jagroot?
Yes.
Kyla?
Yes.
Looks like Tiffany has joined. So
I'm a yes.
okay, and I am a yes. So this is approved unanimously, 6-0.
So given that that's a town consultant and there's no direction involved, we had to make the proposals out to Susan. So she would enter into the proposal with that, and we'll relay that information to her.
Okay, excellent. All right, next up on the agenda is the major schedule items.
So in terms of major schedule items, we did include a work plan in your packet this evening. The work plan is similar to what we've been using throughout the project. It shows sort of upcoming meetings that we have as part of the ongoing project. And at this point in the overall project, we're really talking about the path to bidding. We check it against our overall schedule that we have for the project, and we come up with basically the next phase's milestones. So you can sort of see the things that are coming up. We have some We had a good discussion today about finalizing the Eversource and the potential solar installation on the building because the power supply is tied very closely to the type of solar that's implemented on the building. We have a few meetings that we're trying to schedule right now that are upcoming, including a touch base with security for all the town departments, meeting about tech and AV, and trying to schedule some of the final necessary tests like a fire hydrant flow test. So we're working to sort of sort those out over the next couple of weeks. We are still anticipating to receive some response from MEPA at some point around December 2nd. And then the real big thing that we wanted to talk about from a high level standpoint comes in the sort of the tail end of the project. And that is in looking at the estimating schedule and the MSBA review schedule and where we are overall with the Christmas holiday. We discussed with Perkins and came to mutual agreement that it made sense to issue the 90% drawings on January 10th. That avoids any conflict with consultants not being able to give it the full attention around the holidays. And by moving it to January 10th, we felt we needed a few extra days to wrap up the estimate. It was always a tight schedule around getting the estimate, getting approval of the ESBC to move forward, and getting submitted to the MSBA and hear back from the MSBA before we get to the bidding date. And so with all of those moving parts, we settled on the schedule that's represented in the work plan. It would currently have the 90% drawings going out on January 10th. We would have the 90% estimate come back from the estimators on February 3rd. We would review it on February 5th with the estimators to reconcile between the two of them. We'd review it with the working group the following day and review it with this body on the following Tuesday. That gives us 3 days after that in order to work through the final details of that 90% submission, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and submit it to the MSBA on February 14th. Where we needed that extra week there because we were on top of ourselves in the initial schedule. What that's done is it's pushed the end date for the bid out ever so slightly. So originally, I believe we were sometime around the 13th. But when we talk about having a meeting with this body to approve releasing the bid package, having time to get the responses back from the MSBA based on that schedule, and being able to wrap up all the other things that are involved, it pushes the bid back by about a week. We don't think that's concerning. We have a very generous construction schedule because an aggressive schedule wouldn't have been aggressive enough to open us in the fall. Even though right now I think we're talking about a substantial completion date around October 31st of 2027, followed by 2 months to prepare for the move-in. We think taking a week out of that overall schedule, which works out to like 900 days, didn't really impact it substantially. And so we were okay with the move to push the bid date back that extra week and make sure that we have time to get everything we need into the MSBA and everything before this body so that you know what you're approving. So we would strongly endorse making that move so that we can get the bid packages out to the pre-qualified consultants at that time. And that I think the net effect is 1 week shorter construction duration, which I don't see as a big deal.
Yep. No.
Okay.
Good.
Questions?
No.
Chris, so understanding that 1 week pushback is not a big deal. What in that would you say are like the biggest risks? Or are there any timing risks of that becoming a big deal? What should we be watching out for?
No, I don't think so. I think overall, I think that we're in a good position with where the schedule is overall from a construction standpoint. I think there's a generous amount of time there. It works out to, I want to say, 2 years and 4 months. I think the biggest risk is associated with site uncertainty. We did complete the infiltration testing in the last 2 weeks, and we got the results, I think, yesterday. Those results were much higher than the conservative number that was used in the stormwater permit filing. And so that means that the ground takes water at a much higher rate than the assumption that was made in the stormwater. So, we're obviously in drought conditions. So with drought conditions, it's going to move a little quicker. But I think that's a factor of safety that addresses some of that uncertainty. Certainly with removing that much soil, there's some soil risk that we'll continue to watch. And if it becomes very wet, the contractor is going to have some logistics. And the mixture of the wet soil, the uncertainty of how quickly would clear MEPA, all of those were contributing factors that built in a little extra schedule. With the fact that MEPA seems to be going fairly smoothly, knock on wood, and the fact that the soil issues, we have a good plan. I think that extra time just gives a reasonable time frame for the contractor. There's still the possibility that the contractor comes back with a schedule that's super aggressive and tries to hit an earlier date, because there is in a design bid build approach a little bit of incentive for them to make a little more money off their general conditions if they can get off the site quicker. So it just gives them, if they want to be aggressive, they have the opportunity to be aggressive. If they don't want to be aggressive, I think that the end of October is a perfectly reasonable end date.
Okay.
That was the major schedule items that we had for this meeting.
Okay. Any other questions on those? And I guess we're on to road improvements.
All right, I'll have a new visual aid for that. So permitting wise, where we are with road improvements, the work in the right of way is separate from the planning board. The planning board has jurisdiction over the property. They don't have jurisdiction over the town roads. And so the last permitting hurdle that we're aware of at this time is to go before the Conservation Commission and have them approve the portion of Hayden Row's street improvements that affect the wetlands that are north or northeast or northwest, sorry, of the Marathon School. So we're going to submit these final plans for Hayden Row Street in terms of the street improvements that are proposed. We're adding a catch basin in the street, tying to the existing street drainage. We're going to, we have all of the traffic signals and mast arms up. We're showing some of the proposed improvements for the neighbors that will be discussed at a future meeting. And then when we get into this wetland area over here, which is the jurisdiction, you can see the start of some of the buffers. We talked about there's wetlands flagging along this area that you can sort of see dashed in. I don't know how well it comes across on Zoom, but we're essentially preparing for some vegetation improvements, a new guardrail, widening the street as we've discussed many, many times, to add the additional turning lane. And largely it's just a refinement of the design that we've been showing this body since concept development.
Yeah.
So we didn't feel it was necessary to bring LEC in here and present it, or Vinod in here and present it for a fifth time. We wanted to make you guys aware that this is what we're proceeding with. We're going to submit this to Concom. We're targeting the November 26th submission date. That would have us before Concom, I believe, on, I'm going to get my date wrong if I don't check it.
Middle of December.
I think it's the 17th of December. And so with that, that gives us one, potentially two meetings into January to wrap this up. And it puts us on a timeline that has, we hope, the street improvements going out at about the same time as the general bid package, more or less. We are looking at conversation with the DPW about who reviews the stormwater as it relates to this improvement. That discussion's ongoing and we're waiting to get some clarifications there. There may be some review associated with that will come back to this body if that's necessary. That may come up as part of the Concom process anyway, because generally planning board and Concom work hand in hand in addressing stormwater. Once that's complete, then it'll move forward with whatever the DPW's process is for approval. And we are looking at the possibility that this work would occur in the summer of 26. We think that makes sense for a number of reasons. One, it gives lead time to do the pole relocation. Dave Del Torio, the town engineer, was able to provide us with some contacts at Verizon that he had used for the Main Street project so that we could try and push that forward. We've already cleared the Eversource hurdle of getting their approval. Once Verizon approves and can give us their utility back charge for that relocation, that'll clear that hurdle as well. And we hope to get that process moving in advance of letting to the contractor. Letting to the contractor in April will give him the opportunity to coordinate with the utility companies to get poles in the right location. And then once those poles are relocated and the traffic equipment becomes available, we're hoping he can mobilize and complete the majority of that work in the summer of 26.
Okay. Questions?
Hey, Chris, I'm just curious if in fact we hit the May 13th date of awarding the contract to the GC, how quickly do they get started after approval?
So it's May 13th is the bids begin for the GC. So I believe, I'm sorry, you're right. May 13th is the award of the GC. What we have built into the schedule is about 45 days for long lead times and mobilization. There are a couple of requirements that came out of the planning board process in terms of developing some construction logistics plans, examining how they're going to deal with stormwater and coming up with how they're going to attack the site and getting sign off from the Conservation Commission about that they've put the proper protections in place as they're beginning to do land clearing. And so I think that's going to be the first step that you see. Some GCs may choose to be very aggressive in how they approach that. Some GCs may be more methodical. But we think that by the time you get into the July-August timeframe, they should have a road off Hayden Row into the site. They have to set up the road and the related supports for the road first. And so we expect that work will likely be underway in the June, July, August timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, then. Plumbing drawings?
So the update we have from the plumbing drawings, Perkins Eastman did receive an updated set of drawings that they're currently reviewing from the plumbing engineer. If you recall, we asked that they have that they and their consultant or their subconsultant that they brought into peer review do a back check of those documents. What we've asked Perkins to do is to mark it up as they would any consultant package that they receive in terms of an interim consultant package. So they're going to red mark what they think needs to change and then pass that along to the Vertex team next week. And we're hoping that we can advise the ESBC some point in December about where those drawings appear to be and what remains to be changed about them so that we can give you an update at the next meeting.
Okay. Questions on that? Well, thank you for the update. And then pre-qualification.
Yep. So we had our first pre-qualification meeting last week. The pre-qualification committee voted to approve the request for qualifications as amended as a result of that meeting. We're expecting that to hit the street tomorrow. So we'll begin to receive statements of qualifications by the deadline, which is December 18th. And then the pre-qualification committee has, I think, 6 meetings that are pre-scheduled that take us right into February, where we'll review the qualifications that we receive, decide on the contractors, trade contractors and general contractors that are qualified to do a project of this size and complexity. And those will be the folks who are allowed to publicly bid the job.
Questions or comments or anything from the members of the pre-qualification committee? All right then. Well, that is the last item on our agenda. Are there any questions or additional business?
Just a passing note, we have a couple of costs from Perkins that have come in. One of them was one that we talked about, but I don't think we ever formally addressed, and that was we discussed when we staked Hayden Row to show the setback to the neighbors. We had delayed that, so it required a second mobilization by the surveyor. So that cost came in, I think it was $4,000, Dan. And so we approved
Right.
that through the chair, and we'll process that as part of the allowance for reimbursables that's within Perkins' contract.
That was the work and the remobilization, not just the remobilization.
And I believe that's, did I miss anything, Chris? I think that's basically it for tonight.
No, you covered everything.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
If I may ask a question of Chris. Chris, is there any update as far as the result of the test well that was, it was probably about a month ago, they put it in, how it affects our 120 wells or 140 wells?
I think it was about 3 weeks ago that we did the test well. We have not received the report. I believe they've completed the field testing associated with the well, but they have not yet processed that information and provided it to the engineer.
Okay.
So we checked in with Perkins about that today, and we're still waiting. They're still waiting to receive it from the various folks who generate that information.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else? Okay. If there's nothing else, I would seek a motion to adjourn. Mike, I think you're making that motion, but you're muted.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Jagroot. Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
Kyla,
Yes.
Jagroot,
Yes.
Tiffany,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So we are unanimously adjourned at 6:29 this evening. Thank you as always to HCAM. And thank you everyone for watching, and have a good evening.
Thanks.
Great meeting. Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.